Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Hard Things Podcast. This is your host, Blaine Burgess, and I'm here today with episode 25. I know it's kind of a fake out. There's no guest today, it's just me again. um, but I do have a lot to talk about, a lot to share this week, because life is picking back up again. We just finished our 2-week break at Parker University, so I'm now in what you could call trimester 3 out of 10 in chiropractic school. So just like that, I've been back in school, stuck in a job I was not stoked about. Like, I could do the functions, but the work just wasn't aligned with me. The way my managers ran things wasn't aligned with me, and really just took a giant leap of faith to start doing some school, trying to double time, double dip. I did some school while I was worked through the new year before they kind of found out that I was double dipping, doing school and work, and pretty impressed. 4 or 5 months of double duty was a lot, and a lot to recover from after the new year, but we got it done. And I couldn't be more excited. All that hard work I put in, it's really fun when you start to see hard work start to pay off. Speaking of hard work, I've talked before in this podcast about weightlifting and my weightlifting journey. Lifting at lower body weights has always been, I think it's honestly my first goal in weightlifting was to get to a healthy body weight. The old weight class used to be 105 kilos. It's 231 pounds. I feel like if I was walking around at 231, I'd feel pretty good. This past weekend, I competed in the American Open Series 2 and the Texas State Championship. It was a combined meet. And I did, in fact, I'd been walking around a lot lighter than usual. Earlier this year, I dropped a good amount of body fat and was able to comfortably make weight at the 240 weight class. So just a couple pounds away from that 231 goal I set out for, years ago. And I really, really had to, dig down deep, learn a lot about biochemistry and what happens in our body when we eat food, what happens when we encounter stress. And after many years of research and self-experimentation, I kind of finally figured out how to get my nervous system to settle down while also, training hard and going to school, using my brain and my body at a peak level and then recovering from that, which can be very difficult, obviously very valuable in today's society with the ways that we have to, push our bodies and minds to achieve what we want to achieve, what we need to survive. So, and then, so not only did I make the 240 pound class, I did get 5th overall in the kind of more national competition, which there were 3 kind of nearly world's level or nearly world level athletes in the category. So I cut weight to get away from the big monsters and be a medium monster, and then there were several other medium monsters there that I can't say I wasn't expecting them to come because I'd known they'd been signed up for 6 to 8 weeks, but they really showed up and did their thing. And let's just say, the difference is once again, I'm kind of in that category of college, average college football player versus, these guys are the NFL equivalent of Olympic weightlifting. So it was cool to see them lift, but I was able to steal gold medals in the Texas and Oklahoma kind of combined championship. And I did beat the Texas state champion, the total of the Texas state champion from earlier this year. So I kind of feel like I unified the belts and can call myself Texas state champion. This year, more so than 2023, feels more legit because I'm at a healthier weight class, and also 2023, there was a guy who lived in Oklahoma who now lives in Texas that is possibly going to the Los Angeles Olympics. So he, on a technicality, didn't get to compete in the category. And we also had a masters lifter who's very strong, used to compete internationally, and he's only signed up in the masters category. So his lifts didn't count for the open title. So I kind of felt like I was state champion asterisk before in 2023. So now 2024 feels good to make that cut and, still maintain. I had to do 86% of my max to win. And it's a good thing because I could probably only do about 90%. Just with the injuries and things I've sustained and the weight cut, to be honest, being heavier, you can kind of just push hard and lean back and the weight floats up. But when you get lighter, it's a lot more difficult to move that weight. I can tell you for sure, having kind of gone up and down over the years, anytime I go up, my lifts definitely go up. So enough about weightlifting. Because after I won that, we had Labor Day Monday. College football is back in a big way, and NFL was kind of off. So I really enjoyed watching that college football, and then dipping into the week, we had, first week of school. So no school Monday, but, Tuesday, Wednesday are real heavy days for me. I had my first gross anatomy lab with a cadaver, which was... probably could spend an hour talking about that, and I won't, but I do have a 78-year-old woman that my group is working on, and we've named her Trudy. So Trudy is, hopefully going to show us a lot of great things we can learn to continue our journeys as chiropractors. So kind of surreal in a way. To be working on, a human body and learning anatomy that way. But I will say, after one session, it is really helpful to see. So if you can kind of get past the fact that used to be a real human being and that you were, kind of dissecting them, you can get something out of it for sure. So I think every session here on out, I can suppress my humanity and maybe learn something. So. Yeah, and then through the week, just being back at school, kind of doing all the syllabi and working on calendars. It's like a lot of organization. You don't really learn as much as maybe you'd hope in that first week, and there was, some content to learn. And you just kind of get through it. And I got to about Wednesday, Thursday. I'm still working at the CrossFit gym. Got some new personal training clients hopefully starting soon, and so just busy, and I get this creative impulse. I want to balance kind of the discipline of like being on time and posting things on time. Thursday is a really good day, and I think with my schedule, all my classes that day are online. It allows you to kind of chill out, be remote. So I think Thursday is a great day for recording and posting the podcast. But this week I just did not get it done. There's just no excuse for it. A lot of classes. I had one class that was just removed off my schedule randomly, and I still went to the lab. And I think from now on, I'm just gonna let that one go and do it in the future. So. Regardless to say, I'm really glad that I waited because through the weekend, sometimes you just hear things, especially shows like College Game Day and the different content that Bill Belichick is putting out there. A couple of Croatian football coaches in him and Nick Saban. They're putting out a lot of really great content. These guys are the GOATs of coaching, and just listening to them talk, it's not even necessarily about football. sometimes. I mean, more than anything, those guys were teaching these excellent football players how to be better people. And being better people allowed them to excel even more, kind of show their skills in the football field. So, although I do, like I said, like being on time with posting, I'm glad I waited. And the topic I wanted to kind of bring up and just elaborate on a little bit today is something Nick Saban said on College Game Day. It's something that's always kind of bothered me a little bit about humanity, because there's so much talent, so much potential out there. And I think it's easy to fall in love with people's potential. I mean, every single human being is like a little magic machine. I mean, everyone I meet, they have something about them that just is pure magic. And it may not be, visible to the naked eye. I mean, some people are just, physically beautiful, nice people, whatever, and you can see it from a mile away. But some people, their gifts are a little bit buried. No matter what, I do believe everyone has something incredible to contribute in life. And sometimes, it doesn't express itself on the timeline kind of required by life. And sometimes it's a human created deadline. Sometimes it's life, it's weather, it's, whatever you want to, blame it on, deadlines. But it's funny because this week I'm recording and posting the podcast several days late. And I think it's really important just to talk about timelines. Everyone right now in popular culture is kind of obsessed with like multiverse and different lifetimes and everything. I think it shows this big impetus to not make mistakes, and I think it's really hard to understand, when something's gone on too long, maybe when it needs to cook a little bit longer. It's really, really difficult. So what Nick Saban was saying was, when you're developing, star quarterbacks, for example, what's the first thing that happens? So you get a quarterback in college, they were likely the best in high school. In college, they may have sat for like a year or two, but then they were the man and they won the Heisman, for example. So everyone's telling them you're the MVP, you're the best player in college football. And you get to the NFL. And although your skills or your mentality, your potential is really great, some of your skills are up to par, but not all of them might be up to par. And sometimes NFL GMs and coaches, they're under pressure to win right now. And they need that guy to step up and be all of his potential, this year. But maybe he would be all pro in year 4. Well, when you push him in year 1 and he makes a lot of mistakes, it kind of came up on the show, like Peyton Manning had thrown, so many interceptions his rookie year. He has the record for interceptions, but because he was a Manning, because of his last name, who he is, he kind of got more of a leash. They didn't pull him right away. They didn't try to replace him. And eventually he became Peyton Manning, Super Bowl winning, definitely Hall of Fame caliber player. But there's been so many players who were of the same cut of cloth that didn't get that extra chance. And I mean, this is life is full of tragedies. But when you see a tragedy that can maybe be averted for somebody by just the proper management of time, some of that is a little bit of luck. I've talked before about luck is when preparation meets opportunity. Sometimes your opportunity comes before you're prepared and you get bad luck. And that is pretty tragic. And you see it a lot with different quarterbacks just kind of get washed out and they never really meet their potential. And I think this is, in this specific scenario, is why we have coaches. So coaches like a Nick Saban or a Bill Belichick, they have a lot of experience. Maybe they've had a couple guys wash out and they learned how to just be patient, how to set the stage for someone's potential to come forth. It's funny because if you put less pressure on it and just give it the right conditions, sometimes it will come out sooner rather than if you rush it and you put all this pressure on it, all this scrutiny. And we, as a society, and the media and all the fans, like, they just want it now. Sometimes, you just need a mentor. You need a couple years. You need time for the game to slow down. And I can tell you this is true in all levels of the game. So to kind of pivot from those star quarterbacks, I can talk from my experience of playing football at Harvard. I kind of felt this right away. But our head coach that recently just retired, he'd been coaching there for decades, and more often than not, the team went 7-3. So winning 7 games is pretty good, pretty impressive. Being that consistent is impressive. But it also kind of tells me that, like, the risks you would need to take to really go above and beyond. You kind of, if you want to go 10-0, you might have to go 6-4 because you shot the moon. You tried something new. And being okay with 7-3, you kind of bind 7 wins in a way, and then never going beyond that. Not to say we never did, because they did go 10-0. They did win Ivy League championships, but it was, to have a dynasty like Nick Saban, Bill Belichick, now the Kansas City Chiefs. They're doing these like highly experimental things in some cases. They've got people that are super bought in. Like Tom Brady making more money over his years in the NFL, but he took less money per year, but because he was there so long, he made more money. Just really smart things. Him taking less money allowed the team to be better, allowed them to spend more money on other players. Bill Belichick, knowing all of this, knowing that Tom's the best, and still getting them working together to be on the same page and getting him kind of the most money at the end of the day. It's just genius stuff. Being able to manipulate time in those pieces and putting them all together in a way that people win. It's just amazing. So I always had thought that even at the college level, there wasn't money back then. But I got there and I felt this pressure of, these coaches are young. Harvard's not like in Alabama or Ohio State or whatever. These coaches want to prove themselves. They want job security. They want to maybe get a better job at another place, move up a rank, go from a position coach to a coordinator, maybe even to a head coach someday. So they're really, I think you got to find a coach that has that detachment from their personal ego. Like, of course, you want to succeed as a person, but, Bill Belichick succeeded because he poured so much into all of his players that they won, and it was like a foregone conclusion they were going to win. They were just so prepared, and they put everything into it that he didn't have to concern himself about himself. Like, it just worked out for him because he did the work. I think we try to control the outcome rather than, doing our best and just letting it be. And, if you do your best and you lose, that's a pretty tough pill to swallow. So I think a lot of people, the fear of that caused them to try to control the process. And like I said, to take it back to Harvard, I felt that myself. And when it became apparent, I'd made a couple mistakes early on. I'd been late to a morning lift. It became apparent I wasn't like a great practice player. There were just several things that had happened early on. And I was just fighting back from the negative. People just thought, this kid has bad character, blah, 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 and then they just, when someone's concerned with themselves, they just write that person off rather than trying to peel back that layer and figure out, like, hey, is this really, is this fruit really rotten, or is this just a rotten layer? Is this a rotten time? They're going through something. So I don't feel like I was owed that, but I feel like if a coach wants to be the best coach possible, that's what you owe to yourself to do for people. Because there really is levels. You can try to control the process. I feel like you see the coaches that get to the highest level and then they fail. They get everything they ever wanted and then they fail. Maybe not even coaches, like really true of anything. You have to be that kind of person that exudes confidence and calmness and can like work with people. And when you get to that top level, if you don't have that, you didn't spend the time and put in, intentional work with people, that's where you see people fall apart. They get everything they ever wanted and they realize like, oh shit, like now I have to use my personal power to control this scenario that's so far out of my control. So I can't imagine becoming like president of the United States, like Donald Trump, getting into the Oval Office and then being like, man, I can't control that. Like, this is even bigger than my my powers, and his powers of kind of control, over time have shown to be great. I mean, he's gotten himself out of a lot of jams with pure willpower, and at a certain point, it's just not possible. There's no way around putting in the work to become the person that people trust, that people want to work with, that people, that you can work with people and get the best out of them and have the patience to wait on that potential to come out and to also know when that potential is stuck and maybe you're not the person to help bring that out. So there is like a two-sided coin to that. And when I think about this, I just think about, like, in life we want better outcomes. Like, if we want to win as much as possible, like, you're definitely going to lose. There's no way to not lose. So how do you just take strategic losses and then and make sure they're losses that you can learn from, rather than, just trying to control and win. And I have to say, I'm very thankful that's something I've learned how to do. And then when I hear, Nick Saban talking about these quarterbacks on national television, I hear it and it resonates with me, and it makes me feel good that I understand that, that's the path. Like, that's the path that you have to take. So to kind of put a bow on the Harvard thing, again, I don't feel like any coach owed me anything per se. Maybe back then I did. But I think if we're really looking at the best outcome for both them and someone like me and my teammates, spending that extra time and not just writing someone off, gives them the space. You give the person the space to grow and step into that. And if they don't, that's okay. That's on them. But at least you kind of put your all into it. And I think, for me at least, in my life, over the past year, how I've applied this, going into this new chiropractic journey, doing some of my other creative pursuits, really starting to express myself where I wasn't allowing myself to before. Just learning how to sit with different situations and feel them out. So one, for example, being stand-up comedy I did last year. Stand-up comedy is something that's difficult on two fronts, because you have to be a good writer. So you have to kind of know your voice, know what's funny. But then even more on top of that, you have to deliver it, and you have to be that person on stage that's entertaining and engaging. And I think at times when I was doing it, I had, definitely good writing at times and poor delivery, and then I had good delivery, but the writing wasn't so good. And it's funny, I would write a joke that wasn't that funny, but I just delivered it well, and it hit with the right crowd on the right night. And in terms of things you can control as a comedian, it is that just preparation of like writing well, and then just making sure that you're in that mood, that silly mood, when you get up on stage. And if you can ever do both, which I did maybe once or twice, I definitely felt I was on stage, I was in flow state, the words were just coming, and I had spent time writing, outside of the venue for weeks leading up to it. So not only did I have the confidence, but then I just kind of allowed that to like channel through me. And doing that, I was like, oh man, this is something I need to be doing. And then I think in the past I would have just, maybe there's a point in time where I had to put on the shelf. I was, living in Ohio for a little bit, moved to Texas for school full time. And, I haven't started doing stand-up again in Dallas yet. When I got to Dallas, it was really just like, I got to prioritize school. And it's not that I stopped with comedy completely. I've still been writing at times, and I'm starting to get the itch to start doing it again. But I think even just a little time off allows you to reflect and just not rush, like just be patient. Like I know I have potential as a writer. I have potential as, a stage performer, whether it be comedy or maybe at some point in the future, like music. I have these potentials, but it doesn't have to come out this year. I want to just keep developing my skills. Definitely need to get back on stage to continue to be comfortable and develop that part of it. But in a way, I've been my own coach. And the same goes for it's anything you're doing. Chiropractic school for me, I had a rough start early in the year, like academically, and the material wasn't sticking. And I did okay. I was kind of surviving. And I would say the last trimester, I really picked it up and started thriving, started learning what it was going to take to get through this program, and really coached myself through it. And part of that was, going easier on the exercise, doing less intense exercise, more yoga, more meditation, taking care of my body, and then also just spending more time with the materials and learning, how I learn best and how I learn this material best, because I can learn something else that I maybe enjoy more. Like a couple of classes, I learned it easy because I was enjoying it, and then some of the material I wasn't enjoying, didn't like it, and like, how do you get through that? How do you learn those things and kind of force yourself to put in the work? So it's all been a great learning experience, but like I said, when I heard Nick Saban start talking about that, I just immediately thought to myself, interpersonal relationships are very important, and like, if you can communicate to someone that they have something to offer the world, and then just kind of help them hold space for that to grow, and then just give them time and don't rush. And like, if you're dating someone new and they make a mistake, still go on the second date and just, you'd be like, hey, I really didn't like that, but I'm like willing to, go one more and just see what happens. Because it could just been a mistake, a bad day. Doesn't mean they're a bad person. One kind of brown spot on the fruit doesn't mean it's all rotten. I think right now, our society is very, especially in America, our society is very sensitive to failure or defect. We really like rush to judge people. But the reality is human beings are so defective. Like, as much magic as we have in us, we're also very defective. And from moment to moment, we could be completely different people based on biochemistry, based on external circumstances. you just never know really what's going on with someone. So my default to myself and to others has been, encouragement, make space, and even beyond that, just follow up. If someone says they want something, and you're their friend, that next week, asking them about it could keep them on track, or it could make them realize that they weren't, going all in on it like they said they wanted to, and they could reevaluate. So just being that kind person, allowing for change. I think it's funny. We'll end on this. So coming up, we have the presidential election. In politics, so much we all get really worked up emotionally, and if someone kind of changes a stance, they're a flip-flopper. And this has always really bothered me. It's like if you saw something one way, but then you learned something, you grew as a person, and then you changed your mind kind of in a positive direction that's going to positively benefit people, then we punish people for that. Again, in this whole process of like finding people's potential and helping them bring it out and bringing out your own potential, it's all about changing and evolving. So like changing and evolving should be celebrated, especially when the outcome is beneficial to yourself or people around you. So I always thought that was a little bit asinine. In a lot of ways, humans are kind of backwards. Our instincts go against our highest potential purpose. So with that, I want to encourage you to find, I guess the whole topic of today is kind of great. It's grace. Patience and grace, just being able to hold the space, in an uncomfortable position, a position where we're not quite where we want to be. We're trying to get somewhere. How can you weather the storm? Maybe outside pressures want to see something go a certain way, but how do you dig into your, knowing? If you have an instinct on something, you think someone can get to the promised land, so to speak. How do you kind of insulate that and give it space to work out? That's probably some of the hardest things that we do as human beings, is knowing when to end something, knowing when to double down, know when to hold them, know when to fold them, all that good shit. So yeah, I just encourage you more than anything, just think about these things. Think about times in your life when someone maybe gave up on you a little too soon. You felt like it was, too soon. There's times where, like you're holding on to something. Like I mentioned, my job last year, I was trying to work and do school at the same time, and like I was just holding on for dear life. So when they found out and decided to let me go, I kind of just was like, yep, that's about right. I probably should have been fired 4 or 5 months ago. And you kind of just know. I knew it was over, but I was just, bullshitting, whatever. But don't, just know that for what it is. See things for what they are. Do your best. And until next time, this has been Blaine Burgess. See y'all next week. Until next time,